guys, so I've been thinking a lot about the Cyberspace investigations timeline recently, and more so how it, barely makes any sense, so I thought I'd try to lay it out to the best of my ability. Now, obviously, starting off, we have The Disc. This is the first episode of the series, and in general, I think these episodes are happening in real time. Well, I say I think, this is my series, I know. So The Disc, of course, was released in 2020, and so it happens in 2020. But the more interesting thing to talk about is actually what's said in The Disc. Specifically, when I say that I've been in the TV business for about 20 or so years, which means the current beginning of our timeline goes all the way back to 2000, which is, I guess, when I founded Channel 53 originally. Now, actually tell me what happens in that 20-year time gap. Yeah, basically absolutely nothing. But where it gets more interesting is actually in New Year, New Conspiracy. Now, that video is interesting because I casually mention that I used to run a YouTube channel and used to make Minecraft videos, which, in rewatching the series, I realized that canonizes basically all the rest of my YouTube videos. But of course, if I am the CEO of Channel 53 for 20 years, from 2000 to 2020, this means that I was a YouTuber before that. Now, I started doing YouTube videos in 2014, and obviously that is 6 years before, 2020, so if all 6 years of my YouTube channel happen before I go off and found Channel 53, then that means that I started doing YouTube in 1994, which is, very, very interesting. Now, there is a case to be made that this series isn't supposed to make sense, that I'm kind of just an ageless person who, you know, just things happen. It's kind of like, I don't know, Sonic or Mario, where it's like a mascot character. You're not really supposed to think about it that hard. But the problem is I do have quite a bit of continuity in this series, specifically within itself, but then also with some other, videos in, the YouTube, on my YouTube channel. Specifically, again, you have to understand, right? Pete is a very important character to this series, and he was created, well, not created, but he first appeared in a video that happens, before Cyberspace Investigations, but that video, No Pete, is still canon, because it appears, twice, I think. Once in The Return of Pete, and then again in The History of Pete, just as, a turning point for my life. And actually, because No Pete was made pretty quick, pretty soon before, the start of Cyberspace Investigations, I'm gonna say that, Halloween of 1994 was my last YouTube video. Of course, not literally. As you know, in the current day, I am running a YouTube channel again, but a different one. Now, the interesting thing is, what was this YouTube channel called? Funny thing is, we could probably call it BGA Gaming, because that is what the first few, well, the first more like 75 videos were published under. But it is very interesting, right? So then, of course, let's stop talking about the past, because the past makes my head hurt, because the past wasn't supposed to make sense in the first place. I have screwed myself into being 50 years old or something at this point. But past The Disc, obviously, I think the general timeline from 2020 to 2022 is pretty concrete. There's nothing really interesting that happens there. Most of that is just covered in the series. What is more interesting is the gap from 2022 all the way to 2025 and the current day. There is a 3-year time gap between Sonic Omens and How to Be a YouTuber. Now, obviously, in reality, I just got bored of doing YouTube videos for a long time, so that's why there's an enormous time gap. But ultimately, what actually happened in this 3-year time gap? Well, that is something that might be explored at a later date because, you know, instead of making new and original ideas, I might just kind of be unoriginal. Well, that would be stupid. So yeah, in the current day, right, 2025, this is the BGA era, I guess I'll call it, because that's what the series is called now. Yeah, this is confusing, actually. Yeah, so, oh, I just realized this is incorrect. This would actually be October 31st of 2000. Which actually means 1994. Oh yeah, because my first video was actually released in like December. So my first video would have been like 12, let's just say 12/12/1994. Yeah, okay, here we go. So this is the general timeline. In December of 1994, I start making YouTube videos. Then, on Halloween of 2000, Pete commits suicide, and out of grief, I stop making YouTube videos. And within the next, like, 2 months, I guess, I also found Channel 53, which I then work on for 20 years in failure, until the disc happens and I finally hit it big with that 1700s program, then continuing on for 2 years making videos until the evil CEO locks me in the room, and then the 3-year time gap where Channel 53 has other programming, I guess, until 2025 where I finally break away from Channel 53, create my own YouTube channel, and then kind of destroy the whole thing with the evil CEO and running a business. I'm gonna be honest, that is actually, we might actually have to create a whole new thing here, because ultimately, like, that whole, like, that's, you see the problem here, right? With the evil CEO and running a business, at the end of that, you know, we erase the evil CEO from existence. But the evil CEO did appear in the disc. If he never existed, then the disc didn't happen the same way, meaning the rest of the series didn't happen the same way, but we still end up in a similar place, which technically means, are we actually still in 2025 in the current day, or are we more in, like, 2023? Yeah, that would actually make more sense, because if there's no evil CEO to lock me in the room, I wouldn't have stopped doing stuff. Meaning the current day is actually November of 2023. That's the current day of this series. Our, like, the History of Pete special was the Halloween 2023 special. Ignore the fact that we're covering news from 2025 and beyond. 'Cause, yeah, timeline shenanigans. Technically, this actually says more that the current timeline of this series no longer exists within our reality, and any, like so many things could have been butterflied away by removing the evil CEO, that 2025 games are just now coming out in 2023, right? But, yeah, this is the current timeline. This is actually, funnily enough, what I got this whiteboard for, because I wanted to be able to diagram this out for you guys, because I realized how utterly confusing it is. But, yeah, I guess there's not really much else to say. This is kind of it. Hopefully, in the future, I won't decide to do something as confusing as this for future events in the series. We're just gonna stick to 2023. Maybe I'll make a video that kind of just updates the timeline to be back in 2025 later, cause, you know, it's really confusing what we've got going on right now, but, Thank you for hearing me out, and maybe you have a greater understanding of what I'm trying to accomplish here, so... see ya.